is Chapter 13. The Bloomsbury Antiques Emporium, known as Winkman Stores, stands on Isle Place, a narrow side road running between Coptic and Museum Streets in central London. It's a dowdy, uneven lane with only three commercial establishments: a pizza place on the corner with Coptic, a Chinese psychic healer whose narrow glass door is shadowed beneath bamboo and paper awnings, and a broad fronted building with two bay windows, which is the Bloomsbury Antiques Emporium. The windows of this shop are low slung and hatched with diamond lacing. The interior is always dark. Nevertheless, a variety of objects can be glimpsed within: an equestrian statue in the Greek style with one forehoof broken off, a Roman vase, a cabinet in red mahogany, a Japanese ghost mask grinning from ear to ear. Stickers on the door announce the types of credit cards accepted and the hours of business, which extend to after curfew. There are no ghost bars on the door and no obvious defences. Mr. and Mrs. Winkman, who live above the shop, seem to have no need of them. At 3:15 in the afternoon, following our encounter with Flo Bones, two young teenage tourists slurped iced cokes from a giant paper flagon, turned out of the Museum Street's hot sunlight, and entered the shady side road. The girl wore a True Hauntings t-shirt, a floaty knee-length skirt and sandals. The boy wore a cotton shirt, an enormously baggy pair of shorts and sneakers. Both had large sunglasses and laughed and joked loudly as they strolled along. 3 doors down, they stopped as if in impulse outside the windows of the Bloomsbury Antiques Emporium and spent a little while staring at the array of dusty exhibits. The boy nudged the girl playfully in the ribs. He gestured at the store. The girl nodded. They walked to the doorway and went inside. In setting out our undercover investigation, Lockwood and I knew very well that we were taking risks. Flo had made that perfectly clear. The previous night, as her final favour, she had shown us the shop, pointed it out from the corner of the lane, then she'd stolen away into the dark, leaving only the faintly unwashed smell behind. She had been as close as she wanted to get to Winkman's. We, however, had slipped a little nearer until we could make out a gas lantern flickering in the left-hand bay window, with the ghost mask hanging above it, like the gory head of a floating bride. Lockwood guessed that the light was some kind of signal. He'd been sorely tempted to keep watch, but we were far too weary. The night was halfway over, and we'd had very little sleep before. We left Bloomsbury and walked back home. We slept late, and then came downstairs when the sunlight angled steeply through the windows. George had already gone out. In the kitchen we found a note scrawled in the white paper tablecloth draped over the kitchen table. This was our thinking cloth. We always have some pens lying around, and we use it for memos, shopping lists, messages and doodles, as well as sketches of visitors we've seen. Wedged in a space between an empty donut tray, a burger box, and 2 dirty teacups was the following message: "Out on hunt. Developments. Be here later. G." Nearby was a series of obscure scribblings. 80 degrees, 15 minutes, no response. 100 degrees, 15 minutes, nope. 120, 15, nope. 150, 6 minutes, plasm stirs, face forms. 12 minutes, mouth moves, expressions rude. Buy more crisps. We'd considered the cryptic notes in silence for a few moments, then Lockwood crossed to the oven. He opened it slowly to discover the ghost jar jammed inside. In places, the surface of the glass was slightly blackened. The plasm was almost translucent. The skull at its heart clearly exposed. You could see the little fissures in the bone, the brown staining on its teeth. This was the first time we'd seen the skull since our squabble over its comments 2 nights ago. I glanced nervously at Lockwood, who was making a fleeting effort to prise the jar out of the oven, but he didn't look at me. Instead, he stood back and passed his hand across his face. I don't think I have the strength to think about this now, he said. George's experiments are getting slightly out of control. Remind me to have a word with him this evening. First, however, we had other things to attend to, and Lockwood had already come to his decision. As far as tracking down Jack Carver went, there was little more that we could do presently. The previous night we had left a note at the cafe, carefully addressing it to, quote, the Graveyard Fellowship. It requested that anyone with information concerning, quote, a recent incident at Kensal Green Cemetery should get in touch with us, and offered a small reward. Carver himself would surely not respond, but since half the relic men seemed to be at each other's throats, it was possible someone else would bring us the information. Meanwhile, Flo had promised to let us know if word got out about a special black market auction in the next few days, and we would hear the results of George's research later. Everything, in other words, was well in hand. That just left the Winkman stores. Since it was likely Carver had already passed the mirror to Winkman, Lockwood reasoned that it was worth investigating the antique shop. At best, we might get a clue to the mirror's whereabouts, and at worst, well, given the black marketeer's reputation, it was sensible not to think about that. But we could go on disguised and try not to do anything dangerous. It would be okay. We dressed ourselves as summer tourists, and we took the tube to Bloomsbury. A small bell, dangling from a D-shaped spindle above the door, danced and twinkled madly as we stepped inside the shop. The interior was dim, cool, and smelled of dust and herbal polish. The ceiling was low. Behind us, sunlight glistened against the diamond panels, passing through the stained net curtains, and stretched in broken shards across the old scuffed floor. The room was a forest of shackled tables, display cabinets, chairs, and random objects. Straight ahead was a counter behind which a woman stood, a massive, tall, and ominous as a statue of some long-forgotten god. She was polishing a small glass figurine with a tiny tablecloth. The top of her bouffant hair dew brushed the ceiling as she straightened to regard us. "Can I help you?" "Just looking, thanks," I said. I took her in with a quick look. She was a strong, big-boned person in her early 50s. What with her size and pink skin, she reminded me of my mother. She had long, dyed, very blonde, plucked eyebrows, a thin-lipped mouth, and grey-blue eyes. She wore a blossomy, flowery dress with matching belt. At first glance, she seemed soft and fleshy. At second glance, the aura of hard competence that radiated from her was clear. We knew who she was. Flo had given us the description. She was Mrs. Adelaide Winkman. She and her husband had owned the place for 20 years, since their predecessor had been accidentally crushed beneath a piece of Italian erotic statuary. "Say, this is a cool shop you've got here," Lockwood said. He blew out a small pink bubble of gum. It popped loudly. He drew it back into his mouth and grinned. The woman said, "You'll want to take your sunglasses off. We keep the lights low on account of the artifacts. Their delicate nature." "Sure," Lockwood said. "Thanks." He didn't move his glasses, and nor did I. "So all this is for sale?" "For those with money," the woman said. She looked back down. Her big pink fingers rubbed slowly with the cloth on the contours of the figurine. Lockwood and I drifted around the shop, trying to look aimless, drinking in the details. We found a variety of paraphernalia, things of value, stuff that was evidently just junk. An Appaloosa rocking horse, dappled white flanks stained yellow with age, a tailor's dummy, head and shoulders of moth-eaten cloth, sitting atop a wormy wooden pole, an early metal twin tub with a hose coiled on its top, a Bakelite radio, Three weird Victorian dolls with glassy, staring eyes. These dolls made me shudder. You'd think even Victorian kids would have gotten the creeps from them. Anyway, to the left, a black curtain hung half concertinaed across the door. Beyond it was some kind of annex or smaller room. I caught a glimpse of a wing chair in there, and in it, dark and shiny, the crown of someone's head. Hey, are these haunted? Lockwood pointed to the dolls. The big woman didn't look up. No. Man, they ought to be. There are shops on Coptic Street that have a wide selection of cheap gifts, the woman said. You may find them more suitable for your means than. She left the sentence and let it trail away. Thanks, we're not looking to buy, though, are we, sis? No, I giggled, sucking noisily on my straw. We wandered here and there a little longer, staring at objects casing the joint. My Snap survey told me that there were two exits from the shop floor. An open door behind the counter that led to the domestic apartments. I could see a narrow hallway with a faded Persian rug and sepia photos on the wall. And the room behind the black curtain. It was still occupied. I heard a rustle of papers and a man's sudden sniff. Also, as I always do, I listened to inner things, and there was something there. Not strong, not a noise exactly, perhaps the faintest hum, coiling up, waiting to be let out. Was it the mirror? I remembered the sound I'd heard in the cemetery, like the buzzing of countless flies. It didn't sound quite like that. Whatever it was very close. Lockwood and I rendezvoused at the corner of the room, furthest from the curtain. Our eyes met. We didn't say anything, but Lockwood raised his fingers to me, making sure that his body blocked the view of the woman at the counter. We'd arranged a code beforehand. One finger, we were going to leave. 2 fingers, he'd found out something. 3 fingers, he needed distraction. Wouldn't you know it? It was 3. I had to put on a show. He winked, drifted away to the opposite end of the shop. I glanced at the woman. The cloth moved in little circles, round and round and round. I put my hand casually in the pocket of my skirt. It's amazing how much noise a dozen coins can make dropped on a hard wooden floor. That sudden crash, that scattering rever- reverberation. It even took me by surprise. Coins spilled under the table, between chair legs and away behind the bases of statues. Over the counter, the woman's head jerked up. What's going on? My change! My pocket's ripped! Without waiting, I ducked down and wriggled my way under the nearest table. I did it clumsily, knocking the table so that the jewellery stands on it swayed and tinkled, flicking a couple of coins further in. I squeezed between 2 African bird sculptures. They were flamingos or something, tall, beaky, a bit top-heavy. Above me, the head swung precariously from side to side. Stop that! Get out here now! The woman had left the counter. From behind the tables, I saw her fat pink calves and heavy shoes approach at speed. Yeah, just a tick. I'm getting my money. There was an oriental paper lantern ahead of me. It looked old, fragile, possibly quite valuable. Since it was theoretically possible that a coin might have fallen inside, I gave it an industrious shake, ignoring the gasps of Mrs. Winkman, who was bobbing anxiously beyond the tables, trying to get close to me. Putting the lantern down, I reversed sharply so that my bottom collided with the plaster column, displaying some kind of Roman vase. The vase toppled, began to fall. Mrs. Winkman, demonstrating greater dexterity than I would have expected for someone so large, reached out a ham-like hand and seized it as it went. Julius, she screeched. Leopold. Away across the room, the curtains were flung aside. Someone emerged, moving with stately tread among the aisles. I saw a pair of shorts and stocky legs, tightly clad in cotton trousers. I saw old leather sandals on feet. I saw no socks. The feet were hairy, the yellowed toenails long and cracked. A moment later, a second pair of legs, markedly smaller than the first, but identical in shape and attire, emerged from the back room and came trotting after. I made a pretense of scrabbling deeper under the table, gathering a few coins in my shaking hands, but I knew the game was up. I was already inching back toward the side when I heard a deep, soft voice say, "What's all this then, Adelaide? Silly children playing games?" "She won't come out," Mrs. Winkman said. "Oh, I'm sure she can be persuaded," the voice said. "I'm coming," I called. "Just had to get my coins." I emerged, dusty, red-faced and puffing, stood and turned to face them. The woman had her massive arms folded. She was gazing at me with an expression that would ordinarily have been enough to turn my balls to water, but not this time. It was the man beside her that I had to worry about now, Julius Winkman. My first impression was of a big man made short by some quirk of genetics, or by a lift falling on him, or both. He was a squat, endomorphic body with an enormous head, a thick neck, and powerful shoulders, resting on a barrel-shaped chest. His arms were vast and hairy, his legs stubby and bowed. His black hair was cut very short and oiled back against the surface of his scalp. He wore a grey suit, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, a white shirt, no tie, thick hairs protruding from the collar of his shirt. He had a broad nose and a wide, expressive mouth. A pair of golden pince nez was balancing incongruously on his nose. Though clearly a person of considerable strength, he was a little taller than me. I could look him directly in the eyes, which were big and dark, with long, sinuous lashes. The rest of his face was heavy, swarthy, the notched chin dark with stubble. Beside me was a boy who seemed in many ways a smaller replica of the man. He too had a physique of an upturned pear, the slicked black hair and toad-like mouth. He wore similar grey trousers and a tight white shirt. There were some differences, no pince nez, and mercifully less body hair. Also, his eyes were like his mother's, blue and piercing. He stood at his father's shoulder, staring at me coolly. "What do you think you're doing?" Julius Winkman said, "crawling around my shop." Far away across the room, behind them, the curtain leading to the back room twitched once, briefly, and hung still. "I didn't mean any harm," I said. "I dropped my money." I flourished the evidence in my palm. "It's okay, though. I got most of it. You can keep the rest." Under their collective gaze, my feeble grin grew sickly and crawl away to die. It's a nice shop," I went on. "So much cool stuff. I bet it's pricey, though, isn't it? That rocking horse now. What was that? Couple of hundred at a guess. Lovely." The important thing was to keep them talking, keep their attention on me. "What about that vase there? How much would that set me back if I wanted it? Um, is it Greek? Roman? Fake?" "No. Let me tell you something." Julius Winkman moved close, suddenly, raising a hairy finger, as if he was about to prod me in the chest. His fingers, like his toes, had long, ragged nails. I smelled peppermint on his breath. "Let me tell you this. This is a respectable establishment. We've respectable customers. Delinquent kids who mess about, cause damage. They're not welcome here." "I quite understand that," I said hastily. Bloody Lockwood. Next time he could do the distraction. I made a move for the exit. "Goodbye." "Wait," Mrs. Winkman said. "There were two of them. Where's the other one?" "Oh, I guess he left," I said. "He gets so embarrassed when I drop things." "I didn't hear the door." Julius Winkman glanced around the room. He was so thick-necked he had to turn sideways to do so, rotating his torso and his hips. He smiled faintly. There was a curiously feminine quality to his eyes and mouth that sat oddly with his hirsute frame. He said, 30 seconds, maybe 40, then we'll see. I hesitated. Sorry, I don't understand. Look at her hand, Dad. The boy spoke eagerly. Look at her right hand. That puzzled me. You want to see the coins? No, not the coins, Julius Wickman said. Your hand. Good boy, Leopold. Show it to me now, you lying little tramp, or I'll snap your wrist. My skin crawled. Wordlessly, I extended my hand. He took it and held it still. The softness of his touch appalled me. He adjusted the pince-nez slightly and bent close. With his free hand, he ran his fingers lightly over the surface of my palm. Just as I thought, he said. Agent. Didn't I tell you, Dad? The boy said. Didn't I say? I could feel tears pricking my eyes. Furiously, I blinked them back. Yes, I was an agent. I would not be intimidated. I pulled my hand away. You don't know what you're talking about. I've just come to take a look at your stupid store, and you're not being very nice to me at all. Leave me alone. You're a hopeless actor, Winkman said. But even if you were a theatrical genius, your hand would still betray you. No one but an agent has two calluses on the palm. Rapier marks, I call them. Come from all that practicing you do. All that silly little sword play, yes? Should have thought of that, shouldn't you? And so we're just waiting for your little friend to come out. He looked at the watch strapped to his hairy wrist. I'd guess any time now. A flash of light from beyond the curtain, a yelp of pain. A moment passed. Then the curtain twitched aside. In came Lockwood, white-faced, grimacing, clutching the fingers of his right hand. He took a deep breath, mastered himself. He walked slowly down the aisle, came to a halt before the waiting Winkmans. I must say, Lockwood said, I don't think much of the service here. I was just looking around that little showroom of yours, and there was some kind of electric shock. Silly children playing silly games, Julius Winkman said in his soft, deep voice. Which did you try, boy? The bureau or the safe? Lockwood smoothed his hair back. The safe, which is wired to administer a mild electric punishment to anyone who fails to disarm the circuitry before touching the door. The bureau is a similar mechanism. But you were wasting your time, since there's nothing of any possible interest to you either. Who are you? Who are you working for? I said nothing. Lockwood looked as dismissively contemptuous as possible for someone wearing a colourful pair of holiday shorts and a lightly steaming hand. Mrs. Winkman shook her head. She seemed taller than ever, standing in front of the mullioned windows. Her looming form blocked the light. Julius, I could lock the door. Cut him to pieces, Dad, the boy said. Not necessary, my dears. Winkman gazed at us. The smile was still present, but behind the fluttering lashes the gaze was hard as stone. I don't need to know who you are, he said. It doesn't matter. I can guess what you want, but you won't get it. Let me tell you something. In all my establishments, I have certain defences to deal with people who are not welcome. An electric shock is just the least of them. Crude, but useful during the day. By night, should anyone foolish enough break in, I have other methods. They are most effective. Sometimes my enemies are dead even before I come downstairs. You understand? Lockwood nodded. You've been very clear. Come on, Seuss. No, Julius Wickman said. Not like that. You don't get to walk out of here. Bear-like hands shot out and seized us. Me by the forearm, Lockwood by the collar. Without effort, he pulled us both inwards, close to him, then lifted us up off the floor. The grip was tight. I cried out in pain. Lockwood struggled, but could do nothing. Look at you, Winkman said. Without your silly uniforms and poncy swords, you're nothing but kids. Kids! It's the first time, so you get off lightly, but next time I won't be so restrained. Leopold, the door. The boy hopped over, swung the door aside. Light spilled in. The doorbell tinkled sweetly. Julius Winkman lifted me up and back, then flung me bodily out into the sunlight. The muscles in my arm wrenched. I landed heavily and fell forward onto my knees. A moment later, Lockwood landed beside me, bouncing once upon his backside and skidding to a dusty halt. Behind us, we heard the door to Bloomsbury Antiques Emporium being softly but firmly closed. And that's the end of chapter 13.